Elvis Presley paced the plush carpet of his hotel suite, the city lights of Los Angeles twinkling far below. It was late, but sleep felt a million miles away. Another day, another whirlwind of recording sessions, movie meetings, and fan adulation. He had it all: the fame, the fortune, the screams of millions. But lately, a strange kind of restlessness had settled deep in his bones. Like a low hum he couldn't quite tune out. He stopped by the tall windows looking out at the sprawling metropolis. Down there, people lived ordinary lives, went to their jobs, met friends for coffee, worried about car repairs. He envied their simple freedom. Even just a little. His life, by contrast, felt meticulously planned. Every moment accounted for. Every move scrutinized. He was the king, and sometimes he felt like he was living in a golden cage. He ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. He loved his fans. Truly he did. Their energy fueled him. Their devotion touched his heart. Not Elvis Presley, the legend, but Elvis, the guy who liked peanut butter and banana sandwiches, who loved goofing around, who found joy in the unexpected. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, would have a fit if he heard these thoughts. The Colonel was all about image control and maximizing every penny. Spontaneity wasn't in his vocabulary unless it was a carefully staged publicity stunt. But what Elvis was craving wasn't a stunt. It was something real, something that would break through the polished veneer of his celebrity. He walked over to a stack of records, flipping through them absent-mindedly. Gospel music, rhythm and blues, a little bit of country, all the sounds that had shaped him, the music that had flowed naturally from his soul. Now even the music sometimes felt like a product, something to be packaged and sold. He remembered a conversation he'd had a few weeks ago with one of the guys, Red West, about martial arts. Elvis had been fascinated by it for years. Studying with various masters, he loved the discipline, the power, the focus. He'd even incorporated some of the moves into his stage performances, much to the delight of his fans. But he'd never really gotten to play with it, not in a way that wasn't choreographed for a show. An idea, wild and ridiculous, began to bubble up from the depths of his restless mind. It started as a tiny spark, then flared into a mischievous flame. A fake fight. Public, over-the-top, totally unexpected fake karate fight in a hotel lobby. Thought made him grin, a genuine wide grin that hadn't seen the light of day in what felt like weeks. He could almost hear the Colonel's horrified gasp. That alone was almost enough to make him want to do it. But it wasn't just about rebellion. It was about connection. How often did he get to see unscripted pure joy on their faces? Not the rehearsed excitement of a concert crowd, but the shock and delight of an ordinary person witnessing something completely out of the blue. He imagined the scene, himself, in a fancy hotel, suddenly launching into a dramatic, exaggerated display of martial arts, with a willing participant. Confusion, the gasps, then the dawning realization, and finally the eruption of laughter. That's what he wanted. Not adoration, but shared laughter. He started pacing again, but this time with a spring in his step. The details were hazy, but the core idea was exhilarating. He'd need help, of course. His trusted crew, the Memphis Mafia, would be perfect. Red, Sonny, Joe, Charlie, they were his family, his protectors, and his partners in crime. They'd understand. They'd be up for it. Pictured Red West's serious face trying to keep a straight face during a mock confrontation. He imagined Sonny trying to act tough before breaking into a grin. Yes, this could work. This could be hilarious. And maybe, just maybe, it would remind him and everyone else that even the king could still be just a guy. Having a bit of fun, he knew it was risky. The media would go wild. The Colonel would probably have an craving for something real, something truly spontaneous was stronger than any fear of consequence. He wasn't hurting anyone. He was just trying to bring a little unexpected joy into the world. A plan, however rough, began to form. He needed to talk to the guys tomorrow morning, first thing. Golden Cage might be his reality. But tonight, Elvis Presley felt a thrilling sense of possibility. He finally felt like he could breathe. The idea of the fake fight was a breath of fresh air, a defiant, joyful shout in the quiet confines of his gilded prison. Couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces when he told them. The next morning, Elvis called an impromptu meeting. The usual suspects, Red West, Sonny West, Joe Esposito, Charlie Hodge, and Lamar Fike, gathered in his suite. They sprawled on sofas, nursing coffee, looking a little rumpled from the early hour. They were used to Elvis's sudden bursts of inspiration, though they were usually about a new song, a film idea, or a new car. He just had to have. Elvis, however, was practically buzzing with energy, a stark contrast to his mood the night before. He'd already had a long session of spiritual reading and a quick workout, but the real charge was coming from the secret he was about to unleash. "All right, fellas," he began, leaning forward, his eyes bright with a mischievous glint. "I got an idea. A real good one, and a real crazy one." A few groans, a few curious glances. Joe Esposito, ever the pragmatist, raised an eyebrow. "Crazy? In what way? Colonel is going to kill us crazy, or just regular crazy?" Elvis grinned. "Oh, Joe, definitely Colonel is going to kill us crazy. But it's going to be worth it, trust me." Pause for dramatic effect, letting the anticipation build. "I want to stage a fake karate fight in a hotel lobby, publicly." Silence then, a slow murmur started. Red West, a fellow martial arts enthusiast and one of Elvis's closest friends, was the first to speak, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You serious, E?" "Never been more serious, Red," Elvis affirmed. "Think about it. The looks on people's faces, the confusion, then the realization, then the laughter. It'll be epic." Sonny West chuckled, shaking his head. "Colonel's gonna blow a gasket, E. You know that, right? He'll say it's undignified for the king." "Exactly." Elvis clapped his hands together. "That's half the fun. We're too dignified, too predictable. I want to shake things up. I want to give people a memory they'll never forget. Something that isn't a concert ticket or a movie premiere. Something real and spontaneous, even if it's a staged spontaneity." Lamar Fike, always ready for a laugh, let out a booming laugh. "A public karate brawl. I love it. Who's gonna be your opponent?" "You gonna take on Joe here. He looks like he could use a good tumble." Joe, thin but quick, playfully flipped Lamar, the bird. "I'll leave the theatrics to you guys, thank you very much." Elvis turned to Red. "That's where you come in, Red. You're the best guy for this. You know your stuff, and you can play it straight. We need someone who looks like they mean business, at least at first." Red straightened up, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. "You want me to be the big bad villain, huh? I can do that. We can make it look real good. Lots of dramatic pauses. Maybe some close calls. We'll really sell it. Perfect," Elvis exclaimed, standing up and pacing excitedly. "Think about the moves. The exaggerated chops, the flying kicks that just barely miss. We can do some rolls, some tumbles, make it cinematic." Charlie Hodge, usually quiet, piped up. "We'll need some kind of story though, right? Like, why are you two fighting in a hotel lobby?" Elvis snapped his fingers. "Good point, Charlie Simple. We accidentally bump into each other. Maybe I spill something on you, or you step on my foot. One of us gets a little hot-headed, the other one challenges, boom. Instant drama. How do we get a good crowd? We don't want to cause a riot." "That's the beauty of a hotel lobby," Elvis explained. "It's already got people, tourists, business travelers, hotel staff, plus, if word gets out even subtly that something is happening with Elvis, a few fans might just happen to be there. No Formanek buzz." Joe Esposito, ever the logistics man, pulled out a small notepad. "Okay, so venue, major hotel lobby, opponent, red plot, accidental encounter escalating to a challenge ghoul, hilarity and genuine surprise, Colonel Conception. Putanus tats. Colonel's wrath is a given, Joe, Elvis said, waving a dismissive hand. He'll get over it eventually. He always does when the fans love it. And they will love this. I can feel it. They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas. What kind of clothes should they wear? Just normal clothes to make it look more spontaneous. Should there be any sound effects? Maybe a few grunts and dramatic cries, but nothing too fake. They even practiced a few exaggerated moves right there in the suite, nearly knocking over a vase in the process, sending them all into fits of laughter. This was it. This was the fun he'd been missing. Camaraderie, the creative chaos, the sheer joy of planning something purely for the experience of it. It wasn't about selling records or tickets. It was about connecting, about breaking down the walls of celebrity, even for just a few minutes. Red, still grinning, threw a mock punch at Elvis, who dramatically dodged it with a theatrical flourish. You're on King. Let's give 'em a show they'll never forget. Elvis nodded, his heart soaring. The golden cage suddenly felt a little less confining. He was about to stage the most ridiculous, heartwarming, and utterly Elvis-like performance of his career. And he couldn't wait. The search for the perfect stage began. Elvis and the guys, under the guise of scouting locations for a future film project, checked out several high-end hotel lobbies in Los Angeles. They needed a place that was grand enough to feel important, busy enough to have a good crowd, but not so crowded that it would be impossible to move, and crucially, it needed plenty of open space. After much deliberation, they settled on the lobby of the International Hotel. It was a sprawling, opulent space with high ceilings, polished marble floors, and plenty of comfortable seating areas. It was also known for its continuous stream of tourists and business travelers, offering a perfect, unsuspecting audience. This is it, Elvis declared, standing in the middle of the vast lobby, his eyes scanning the various nooks and crannies. Plenty of room for some dramatic tumbles, Red, and those giant pillars perfect for a theatrical duck or a near miss. Red nodded, his mind already choreographing imaginary moves. We can make an entrance from over there by the elevators and exit towards the gift shop, drawing the crowd with us. The logistics were surprisingly complex for something so seemingly spontaneous. They couldn't just walk in and start fighting. They needed a signal away to ensure they started at roughly the same time and could control the flow. Okay, so here's the plan. Joe Esposito, ever the planner, outlined during another secret meeting back in the suite. Elvis and Red will arrive separately a few minutes apart. No direct eye contact until the accidental bump. We'll have a few of us positioned around the lobby, acting like regular guests, but ready to subtly guide the crowd, if necessary, or just look suitably shocked. And we need to make sure there are no real security guards right on top of us when it starts. We don't want to get tackled before the fun even begins. Lamar Fike added, what about some sound effects? Like a really loud H-I-Y-A-H from Elvis when he does a big chop, or a dramatic grunt when Red gets hit. Elvis grinned. Love it, Lamar. We'll rehearse some of those. Make it sound like a real martial arts movie. He turned serious for a moment. But remember, guys, the most important thing is safety. This is for fun. No one gets hurt. We pull every punch, every kick. It's all about the illusion. Red nodded. Absolutely. We'll choreograph it like a stage show. We'll hit the ground hard, but safely. I'll make sure my falls look convincing. They spent the next few days in intensive secret rehearsals. In Elvis's suite, they cleared furniture and practiced their moves. Elvis, with his natural grace and martial arts training, moved fluidly, exaggerating every chop and kick for comedic effect. Red, equally skilled, played the perfect foil, reacting with dramatic recoils and near misses that were so close they looked genuinely dangerous. They perfected the initial bump, the heated exchange of words, the moment one of them snapped and initiated the fight. They tried out different opening lines. Watch where you're going, pal, Red would snarl. You're the one who needs glasses, buddy, Elvis would retort. And then the classic, you looking for a fight? to which the response was always, "You just found one." They practiced the timing of their dramatic tumbles, the synchronized spins, the moments they would pause, chests heaving, to glare at each other before the next flurry of action. They even worked on specific facial expressions, Red's initial scowl turning into a bewildered look as the fight got more outlandish, and Elvis's determined intensity slowly morphing into a playful smirk. News of their unusual practice sessions reached Colonel Parker's ears, of course. He stormed into the suite one afternoon, finding Elvis and Red in the middle of a rather dramatic slow-motion kick. "What in the tarnation is going on here, Elvis?" the Colonel boomed, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "Are you practicing for a new movie? Because I haven't approved any fight scenes. This isn't dignified." Elvis, still mid-kick, slowly lowered his leg, a sheepish grin on his face. "Just blowing off some steam, Colonel. You know, staying in shape. It's good for the reflexes." Red, ever the master of the poker face, nodded gravely. "Yes, Colonel Mr. Presley's agility is remarkable. We're just ensuring he maintains peak physical condition." The Colonel narrowed his eyes clearly, not buying it, but unable to pinpoint exactly what was amiss. He grumbled something about unnecessary theatrics and proper channels before stomping out, leaving the guys to burst into laughter. The near miss with the Colonel only fooled their excitement. The date was set, a quiet Tuesday afternoon, chosen specifically to avoid peak tourist times, but still ensure a good number of people in the lobby. No media invited, no official announcements, just pure unadulterated spontaneity. It wasn't about selling out stadiums or topping the charts this time. It was about creating a moment, a memory for people who never expected to find themselves in the middle of a hilarious, staged karate fight starring Elvis Presley. The stage was set. The players were ready. And the unsuspecting audience had no idea what was about to hit them. Chosen Tuesday afternoon arrived bright and sunny outside, a stark contrast to the brewing mischief within the International Hotel. Elvis was surprisingly calm, a quiet hum of excitement vibrating beneath his skin. He had foregone his usual elaborate stage outfits for a casual, stylish ensemble. A dark blue suit, open-collared shirt, and his signature aviator sunglasses. He wanted to blend in at least for a moment before the chaos began. He arrived separately from Red, driven by Joe Esposito, and entered the hotel through a discreet side entrance. Took a moment in a quiet corridor to mentally prepare, taking a few deep breaths. This wasn't a concert, but it was still a performance, and he wanted to make it memorable. The lobby was bustling but not chaotic. Business travelers checked in, briefcases in hand. Tourists, cameras slung around their necks, wandered past display cases. A few older couples sipped coffee in the lounge area, reading newspapers. Children zipped around, chasing each other, their laughter echoing off the marble. It was a typical Tuesday, completely unsuspecting. Elvis surveyed the scene from a slight distance, allowing himself to become part of the background for a few minutes. He spotted Sonny and Charlie casually seated in armchairs, pretending to read. Lamar was by the newsstand, seemingly absorbed in a magazine. They were all in position, ready to be part of the unfolding drama. He saw a young family checking in at the front desk. A dad trying to wrangle two small kids. A mom looking tired but happy. An elderly lady sat alone knitting peacefully. A group of teenagers, giggling, walked past, clearly on some kind of school trip. This was his audience, ordinary people, just going about their day. Perfect. His gaze landed on a particular boy, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, who was hunched over a comic book on a low table, completely absorbed. The boy wore thick glasses and seemed a little shy, tucked away from the main flow of traffic. Elvis felt a pang of warmth. He remembered being that age, getting lost in stories, dreaming of bigger things. Maybe this kid would get a kick out of what was about to happen. Just then, Red West entered the lobby from the main entrance, dressed in a sharp dark suit that made him look a little more imposing than usual. He had a serious, almost stern expression on his face, perfectly setting the stage for his role as the unwitting antagonist. He carried a briefcase, adding to the businesslike facade. He scanned the lobby, not looking directly at Elvis, but clearly making sure Elvis was in position. Their eyes met for a fleeting second, an almost imperceptible nod exchanged between them. The signal was given. Elvis took a slow breath, squared his shoulders, and began to walk towards Red's intended path, his pace casual, almost meandering. He needed to look like he was just a regular hotel guest minding his own business. His heart picked up a little speed, a familiar adrenaline rush washing over him. This was it. Red, meanwhile, was walking with a purposeful stride, looking straight ahead as if deep in thought. The choreography had been practiced dozens of times. They would walk towards each other, appearing not to notice the other, until the very last second. The lobby's ambient noise, the murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, the distant ring of a phone filled the air. No one seemed to notice the two men subtly converging. No one suspected that this ordinary Tuesday afternoon was about to become anything but ordinary. Elvis passed by the little boy reading the comic book. The boy engrossed to himself. The surprise would be even greater for him. He was almost at the collision point. Elvis could feel the buzz in the air, the collective unconsciousness of the crowd, just moments before an unexpected jolt. He adjusted his sunglasses, a subtle gesture that was part of his prepared persona. This wasn't just a prank. This was a gift, a moment of pure, unadulterated fun delivered directly to the unsuspecting hearts of the people in this very room. He tightened his jaw slightly, ready to embrace the absurdity, ready to light up the lobby with laughter. The stage was not just set. It was alive, waiting for its cue. The confrontation was seconds away. The collision was perfect. Elvis, feigning distraction, bumped squarely into Red West. It wasn't a violent crash, but enough to make both men stumble slightly. "Hey, watch it, buddy," Red barked, his voice carrying just enough to turn a few heads. He dropped his briefcase with a sharp thud, making it sound more dramatic than it was. Elvis, hands already instinctively moving to his hips, pulled off his sunglasses with an exaggerated flourish, his brow furrowed in mock annoyance. "Excuse me, you're the one walking around like you own the place." A few more heads turned. The elderly lady knitting in the lounge paused, her needle still. The young boy with the comic book finally looked up, his eyes wide with curiosity. This wasn't normal lobby chatter. Red's face was a mask of indignation. "I was minding my own business. You nearly knocked me over." He gestured dramatically at his briefcase on the floor. "Do you know how important the contents of this are?" Elvis scoffed. "Oh, I'm sure, probably your lunch money and a worn-out deck of cards." He crossed his arms, leaning back slightly, giving Red a look of dismissive challenge. A small crowd began to gather, drawn by the escalating tension. People stopped walking, their conversations dying down. Murmurs started. "Is that?" "It looks like." Red stepped closer, invading Elvis's personal space. "Listen, pal, I don't know who you think you are, but you just picked a fight with the wrong man." His voice was low, menacing, but with a subtle theatricality that Elvis, and only Elvis, could detect. Elvis narrowed his eyes, a glint of challenge in them. "Is that right? Because from where I'm standing it looks like you're the one spoiling for trouble." He uncrossed his arms, his posture shifting subtly, hinting at a readiness for action. The lobby was now almost completely quiet, save for the hushed whispers of onlookers. The hotel staff at the front desk exchanged worried glances. The little boy had abandoned his comic book entirely, perched on the edge of his seat, mesmerized. "I'm warning you," Red growled, leaning in even closer. Elvis met his gaze, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his lips. "Warning me? You think you can warn me, mister?" Paused, letting the words hang in the air, allowing the tension to build to a crescendo. Then he delivered the line they had rehearsed countless times, his voice dropping to a low, challenging growl. "You want to make something of it?" Red's jaw tightened. He took a deep, theatrical breath as if bracing himself. "All right then, if that's how you want to play it." He took a step back, subtly shifting his weight, signaling the imminent burst of action. A gasp went through the small crowd. They recognized Elvis now, many of them. His eyes were locked on Red, his body poised. This was it, the moment of no return. He could feel the anticipation radiating from the onlookers. They were shocked, confused, and utterly captivated. Red threw the first punch, a wide, over-the-top swing that Elvis easily dodged with a graceful lean. The air seemed to crackle with tension. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The quiet afternoon was about to explode into controlled chaos. Elvis was ready. He could see the fear, the excitement, and the utter bewilderment on their faces. The show had officially begun. The moment Red's exaggerated punch whizzed past Elvis's ear, the lobby erupted. A mix of gasps and shocked exclamations filled the air. But as Elvis responded, a strange shift began to occur in the crowd. Elvis didn't just dodge. He reacted with a dramatic, almost balletic flourish. He spun his hand, shooting out in a lightning-fast, pulled-back karate chop that stopped inches from Red's nose. Red reeled back with an equally dramatic gasp, clutching his nose as if it had been broken. "Ow, my nose!" Red wailed, stumbling backwards and nearly tripping over a potted plant. Elvis smirked, then quickly adopted a stern face again. "You think that hurts? You haven't seen anything yet." He launched into a series of rapid, airy kicks, each one designed to miss by a hair's breadth, but looked devastatingly powerful. His legs extended, his hips swiveled, his feet sliced through the air with a faint whoosh. The crowd's initial shock began to morph into confusion, then a dawning amusement. The moves were too flashy, too perfect, too cinematic. This wasn't a real fight. This was a performance. A young woman in a floral dress, who had initially covered her mouth in horror, let out a nervous giggle. The shy boy with glasses, eyes glued to the spectacle, started to bounce slightly on his toes. Even the knitting lady had dropped her yarn, a faint smile playing on her lips. Red, seeing the shift, leaned into the comedy. He stumbled again, performing an elaborate slow motion, fall over an imaginary obstacle, landing with a loud theatrical OOF that echoed across the marble floor. He lay there for a moment, groaning before dramatically scrambling back to his feet, glaring at Elvis. "You're gonna regret that, Presley," Red roared, deliberately using Elvis's last name. The revelation of Elvis's identity, now stated explicitly, sent another ripple through the crowd. This wasn't just a random fight. This was Elvis Presley, the king, staging a mock battle in their very presence. The absurdity of it all began to sink in. Elvis, meanwhile, was having the time of his life. He delivered a series of rapid-fire chops, accompanied by loud, synchronized HIYAH sound. His eyes sparkled with mischief as he saw the smiles, then the outright laughter blooming on the faces around him. He performed a dazzling spin, ending in a low crouch, then lunged forward with a flying kick that barely cleared Red's head. Red ducked with incredible speed, nearly doing a somersault to avoid it. "Whoa, too close, Eam," Red exclaimed, momentarily breaking character, then quickly recovering. "You're crazy, man." The crowd roared with laughter. They were completely invested now, not as worried bystanders, but as delighted audience members. People pulled out small cameras, aiming them at the impromptu stage. Hotel staff, initially moving to intervene, had stopped watching, with amused expressions, unsure if they should stop it or just enjoy the free show. Elvis launched into a grand finale sequence. He executed a series of high kicks, one after another, each one more flamboyant than the last, narrowly missing Red's head, his shoulder, his knee. Red reacted with increasingly comical dodges, ducking, weaving, and nearly tying himself in knots. Finally, with a loud, drawn-out "yah-ah," Elvis delivered a final majestic, slow-motion roundhouse kick. Red, with a Herculean effort, attempted to block it, but the force of the blow was too much. He spun around several times, then collapsed onto a nearby luggage cart, sending a cascade of suitcases tumbling around him. "KO!" Elvis yelled triumphantly, raising his arms in the air. The lobby exploded in a thunderous wave of applause and cheers. People were on their feet, clapping, stomping, whistling. The laughter was infectious, ringing through the grand space. It wasn't just polite applause. It was the raw, uninhibited roar of a crowd that had just witnessed something truly extraordinary and wonderfully ridiculous. Elvis took a deep, satisfied bow, a wide, genuine grin stretching across his face. He looked over at Red, who was now sitting up on the luggage cart, rubbing his head dramatically but beaming. Red gave Elvis a thumbs up. This was it. This was the pure, unscripted joy he had craved. The energy flowing from the crowd was exhilarating, more potent than any stage lights or record sales. It was the feeling of shared happiness, of making people forget their worries for a moment and just lose themselves in pure, unadulterated fun. He looked out at the faces glowing with amusement and delight. The little boy was still clapping his face, flushed with excitement. The knitting lady was wiping a tear of joy from her eye. Strangers were high-fiving each other. This wasn't just a fake fight. It was a dance, a comedy, a spontaneous piece of street theater. And Elvis, with Red as his perfect partner, was conducting the most hilarious orchestra of reactions he had ever witnessed. The lobby was no longer just a lobby, it was a stage filled with pure, unadulterated joy. As the last echoes of applause faded, replaced by excited chatter and the clicking of cameras, Elvis stepped forward, his genuine smile lighting up the lobby. He extended a hand to Red, who dramatically accepted it, allowing Elvis to pull him off the luggage cart. Red, still playing his part, dusted himself off with an exaggerated grimace. All right, you win this round, Presley," he grumbled good-naturedly, then broke into a wide grin. "But don't think this is over." Elvis clapped Red on the shoulder, then turned to the still buzzing crowd. His voice, naturally amplified by the high ceilings and the sudden silence, carried across the lobby. "All right, folks. All right. Hope we didn't scare you too bad." He chuckled, running a hand through his hair. "Just a little friendly spar, you know? Got to stay in shape for those movie roles." A wave of relieved laughter swept through the crowd. Many had suspected it was a joke, but hearing it confirmed from Elvis himself brought a new level of mirth. "It was all in good fun," Elvis declared, spreading his hands wide. "Just wanted to lighten up your Tuesday afternoon a little bit." The crowd erupted into another round of cheers and applause, even more enthusiastic this time. It was an acknowledgement not just of the performance, but of the unexpected gift of pure joy he had given them. People started surging forward, cell phones, or rather early instant cameras, held aloft, eager for autographs, pictures, or just a closer look at the king who had just staged a mock brawl. Elvis, surrounded by his usual entourage, who had, backily, moved into protection mode, graciously started signing autographs on whatever people handed him: napkins, hotel stationery, even a few comic books. He spotted the little boy with glasses, now pushing through the crowd, a shy but determined look on his face. The boy clutched his comic book tightly. "Elvis, that was amazing," the boy practically whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. Elvis knelt down, putting himself at the boy's eye level. "Why, thank you, young man. You got a good eye for a fight, huh?" He winked. "What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy replied. Barely able to speak, I watch all your movies, and I love karate, too." "Well, Tommy, keep practicing," Elvis encouraged. Taking the comic book the boy offered, he signed it carefully. To Tommy, "Keep punching Elvis Presley." He handed it back with a smile. "Maybe one day we'll have a real sparring match, eh?" Tommy's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Wow, thank you, Elvis." He hugged the comic book to his chest, looking like he just won the lottery. Next, an older lady, her knitting needles now clutched in her hand, approached, her eyes twinkling. "Mr. Presley, that was the most delightful thing I've seen in years. My heart hasn't pounded like that since my husband proposed." Elvis chuckled warmly, taking her hand. "Well, I'm glad we could provide some excitement, ma'am. You look like you enjoyed it." "Oh, I certainly did," she exclaimed. "The way you two went at it. Just wonderful. Thank you, dear." He spent another 10 minutes chatting with people, signing, laughing. He saw the genuine happiness in their eyes, the sheer disbelief that this had happened. It wasn't a planned meet and greet. It was a moment of shared humanity, a spontaneous connection that meant more than any formal event. Eventually, Joe Esposito gently guided Elvis toward a discreet exit, ensuring he wasn't completely mobbed. As he walked away, he looked back at the lobby. It was still buzzing with excitement. People reliving the moment, laughing, pointing, telling their friends. The energy was palpable. Back in the quiet of his suite, Elvis finally let out a long, satisfied sigh. That was something else, wasn't it, Joe? Joe, ever loyal, nodded with a smile. Definitely something else. You gave him a show they'll be talking about for years. And you know what? What? I think the Colonel already knows. Joe gestured towards the ringing phone. And he's not happy? Elvis just grinned. But the joy he felt, the pure exhilaration of making so many people laugh, was worth every single one of Colonel Parker's inevitable fits. The phone call from Colonel Parker was, as expected, a Category 5 hurricane. Joe had wisely put it on speaker, and even across the room, the Colonel's booming, furious voice rattled the suite's windows. Elvis Aaron Presley, what I NTHE ever-loving name OF, show business where you thinking, the Colonel shrieked, his voice practically cracking the receiver. A public brawl? In a hotel lobby. DOYOU. Have a NI idea TH damage. This could DOTO your image. Elvis, surprisingly calm, leaned back in his chair, a faint smile on his lips. Now, Colonel, it wasn't a brawl. It was a demonstration, a little bit of showmanship. The people loved it, loved it. The Colonel sputtered. They loved it. They'll think you've gone mad. The King rolling around on the floor with one of his bodyguards. It's undignified. It's unprofessional. It's terrible publicity. Au contraire, Colonel, Elvis countered, holding up a finger to Joe, who was about to intervene. It's great publicity. You should have seen their faces. Pure delight. Laughter, Colonel. Honest to goodness. Laughter, not just applause, but real gut-busting laughter. I don't care about gut-busting laughter, the Colonel roared. Care about record sales and movie contracts? We spent years building your pristine image, and you throw it all away for a ridiculous. He trailed off, seemingly unable to find a word strong enough. A little fun, Colonel? Elvis finished for him. That's all. It was a little fun and a whole lot of joy for those folks. You should have seen little Tommy the kid with the comic book. His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. There was a moment of silence. On the other end, a rare occurrence. Perhaps the Colonel was momentarily stumped by Elvis's earnestness. Then he recovered. Joy doesn't pay the bills, Elvis. Now listen to me. This is never to happen again, do you hear me? We need to issue a statement, something about a misunderstanding or Elvis demonstrating his martial arts skills in a private setting. Elvis sighed. No, Colonel. No statement. It happened. It was real, and it was good. Let them talk. Let them laugh. It makes me seem human, doesn't it? Less like a cardboard cutout, more like a real person. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes, a familiar dance between the artist craving authenticity and the manager obsessed with control. Eventually, the Colonel, huffing and puffing, hung up, leaving Elvis to a quiet moment of reflection. Priscilla, who had been listening from the bedroom doorway, now walked in, a soft smile on her face. She sat beside him, taking his hand. He's furious, isn't he? She asked gently. Elvis nodded. Beyond furious. He thinks I've lost my mind. No, baby, not at all. I felt more like myself out there than I have in a long time, just being spontaneous. Seeing those people's faces, Priscilla, it wasn't about being Elvis Presley, the star. It was about being a guy who could make other people happy. Just by being silly. It's like the fame, it builds these walls, you know. And sometimes you just want to kick them down even for a few minutes, just to feel that real connection, that genuine surprise. It felt goody good. Priscilla leaned her head on his shoulder. I know, my love. I understand. You're not just a performer. You're a person. And people need to see that side of you sometimes. The mischievous, fun, real Elvis. Closed his eyes, replaying the scene in his mind. Red's dramatic falls, the gasps turning into laughter. The little boy's wide-eyed wonder. It had been reckless, perhaps, and certainly went against every rule the Colonel had ever laid down. But it had also been incredibly liberating. He wasn't just a product. He was a force of nature, a source of unexpected joy. And sometimes even the king needed to remind himself of that. He was Elvis, and he was finally breathing easy again. The news of Elvis Presley's impromptu karate brawl in the International Hotel lobby spread like wildfire. But instead of the negative backlash Colonel Parker had predicted, something unexpected happened. The public loved it. The initial news reports were a mix of incredulity and amusement. Elvis gets into lobby brawl, headlines blared, quickly followed by retractions and clarifications that it was, in fact, a staged hilarious performance. Eyewitness accounts, often exaggerated for comedic effect, circulated rapidly. People who had been there couldn't stop talking about it. You should have seen it, an old woman told a reporter, barely able to contain her giggles. He was just magnificent, flailing about with that other fellow like something out of a comedy picture. The little boy, Tommy, became a mini celebrity in his own right, appearing on local news with his signed comic book, recounting every detail of the fight with wide-eyed wonder. He spoke about Elvis kneeling down to talk to him, about the excitement of seeing his hero in such an unexpected way. His story, more than any professional review, captured the heartwarming essence of the event. Instead of damaging Elvis's image, the lobby fight made him even more beloved. It showed a side of him that fans rarely got to see, the playful, spontaneous, down-to-earth man behind the superstar persona. It proved he wasn't just a carefully constructed idol, but a real person, with a mischievous spirit and a desire to connect with people on a human level. Colonel, much to his chagrin, found himself unable to spin it negatively. The positive public reaction was overwhelming. He grumbled, he fumed, but in the end, even he had to admit that the buzz was unlike anything they'd orchestrated before. It was genuine. For Elvis, the lobby fight became a quiet triumph. It wasn't about the accolades or the fame. It was about the feeling. He carried the memory of the laughing faces, the shared joy, the pure surprise of it all. It reminded him that his power wasn't just in his voice or his moves on stage, but in his ability to bring unexpected happiness into people's lives. Years later, the story of the International Hotel lobby fight would become a legendary tale whispered among fans and mentioned in biographies. It was a footnote in a colossal career, but for many who witnessed it, it was a highlight, a personal anecdote of the day Elvis Presley brought laughter and magic to an ordinary Tuesday. Tommy, the boy with the comic book, grew up to be a martial arts instructor. He never forgot that day. He often told his students the story of how Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, inspired him, not just with his music, but with a moment of spontaneous, hilarious fun. He always ended the story by saying, "It wasn't just a fake fight. It was a reminder that even the biggest stars can be real people, and that sometimes the best moments are the ones you never see coming." Elvis continued his career, thrilling millions, but that quiet afternoon in the lobby remained a special memory. It was a moment when the golden cage felt a little less confining, when he was just Elvis sharing a laugh with strangers, reminding everyone that joy could be found in the most unexpected places. And sometimes all it took was a little bit of playful mischief, a fake karate fight, and a heart full of generosity. The laughter from that lobby echoed in his soul, a heartwarming symphony of pure, unadulterated delight. Long after the applause had faded,